All right. I am welcoming back now, definitely the highest amount that a guest has been on the show. Josh Arnold, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. Josh, if you're not watching on YouTube or on the WrenchWay site, is coming to us from his car this morning. I think the dealership has a little bit of construction, or you got some reason why we had to go to this more unique setup today.
Yeah, it's a little bit slapped together. We had some people show up early in the shop, so I was going to record in the shop, but background noise would be a little bit loud.
What what was their reason for showing up early in the shop?
Well, it's the last day of the pay period here, so it's always a big day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. There's a lot going on there. That makes total sense. So we mentioned this as we record this. It's about 6 a.m. Central Time. And I think what is going to be unique about this podcast is that we're going to get to watch the sun come up in Josh's car as we're recording.
Yep, it'll be a special one.
Now it's a little different because you're doing this from Texas. We in one of the past podcasts we did with you talked about the fact that I think you were moving to Texas. I don't know that we gave full disclosure on exactly
Yeah,
what you were doing.
yeah, we were kind of in the middle of the move actually, right when, or at least getting ready for the move. Because I mean, when you move states, holy cow, with the family, with the tools, it's a little bit of a pain. It was a very stressful couple of months, and I think we recorded right as I had thought or accepted the offer and knew that I was going there. So the stress was just getting going. But
Yeah.
basically, kind of picking off where we left is after I went to the national tech competition there, for Subaru, I had met a dealership, and they're one of the higher end dealerships in the country. Recruiting was a big thing for them, and they had somebody there that was at the national tech competition. And it wasn't hard, like it wasn't like he was trying to force me to come down, but he of course, how anything starts, it was hey, can I give you this guy's number, and we'll go from there. And once I actually got in contact with that person, I'm a person that will listen to any opportunity that comes across the board. So I was like, okay, let's talk. And he had an offer that I just couldn't say no to. I mean, to say a little bit that I think really stood out to me was they were willing to pay for relocation. They were willing to help me out the first year of moving down here, the cost and getting down here, and also the dealership here offers 1.5 times warranty time, which was a big draw for me. Anyone that's flat rate knows that when you're getting paid a warranty time, that it's always less. So that 1.5 bump was a massive incentive, along with some really good benefits and very good pay.
Yeah. Yeah. It was uh definitely sad to leave you see that region that you were at, that dealership you were at. But I think right now it is you're wearing short sleeves, I believe,
Yeah. Yep.
and I'm in Wisconsin and it's starting to snow and we're supposed to get a lot of snow this week. So I am a little jealous of that part because I really don't feel like plowing snow this week. And Austin, Texas sounds pretty awesome right now.
Yeah. I mean, the summer was crazy. Definitely want to
I,
recommend coming down for that part. Yeah, 110 consistently for way too long. And but the time around the summer is pretty great. And I've enjoyed the weather a lot. It's allowed me and my family to spend a lot more time outdoors, not getting rained on constantly. I definitely miss Oregon trees and mountains
yeah,
in the background because it is very flat. Um,
gorgeous. Yeah.
but I'll be honest, I spend a lot of my time in the shop, so I don't necessarily get to stare at mountains all day either way.
Yeah, I I get that, and you're lucky because both are pretty awesome spots, right? They
Yeah.
where you came from and where you're at. Uh, it does take a little bit of kind of embracing the unknown, going to a new city, and
Yeah.
like you Didn't know anybody down there, did you?
Uh, no, they flew me down twice to check out the city. Once just me, no guarantees on you know, going to employment. It was purely just to check them out. And then a second time, once I was considering employment, they wanted to fly out my family and make sure that that was going to be a big fit. So I came down here twice. I knew only people of I had been for the last like 2 weeks prior to that. I we don't have family friends down here. We don't have anything. We purely got up and moved completely unknown, and it was stressful. It was a hard thing for me as a flat rate tech, especially since coming from that last dealership. I mean, I grew up there from 18 to I think I left at 25. Uh, those years are good and bad in all of them. I grew up a lot and I'm forever grateful for that place and what they gave to me and invested in me. And I still talk to those people uh, at least once a week, if not once a month. And so it was scary to say the least. And then the logistics of doing it was a whole nother nightmare. Luckily, like I said, the dealership here they made it a lot easier. They shelled out the money where they needed to and they supported me where they could. And I even had people at the dealership scouting home locations for me and different things like that. Because when you're moving to somewhere, you don't know anything, right? Like I don't know the neighborhoods, I don't know, the commute, which ways to get to work, and different things like that. So there's just all these little things that you don't think about that come into play. So definitely a transition.
Yeah, I would say. Did anything I looking at the mountains is one thing, driving a U-Haul trailer through them on the way to Texas is probably a little different.
Yeah, so I actually took the car that I'm sitting in here today, and I had a very loyal buddy. He was one of the technicians at the other dealership, and he's always been an adventurous spirit, and he's been a good friend to me. I think I've been a good friend to him, and he was willing to take the drive down to Texas, towing the tools for me, which was I'll forever be grateful and indebted to him. But it was a wild ride. The biggest thing that stood out to me is I prepared for snow at the pass because we were kind of going around March, which usually isn't too bad, but occasionally you'll get that cold snap and that pass is a nightmare. Well, no snow, so I had snow tires on my car. We had chains, we had all this crap. Didn't even need it. And then we got to New Mexico, and me
New
being just
Mexico's a killer.
oblivious. I was like, "Oh, it's nice, it's a desert. There's not gonna be anything." We went through the high part of New Mexico in the middle of the night, and we hit a whiteout blizzard, and I was just like I mean, it was the worst, snow I think I've ever been in, getting over that whatever mountain we were on. It was too dark to see anything, but yeah, that was unexpected, and I definitely was not prepared for snow in New Mexico.
Did you take is it I-40 through like Albuquerque?
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, it's all a blur. It was 33 hours of driving,
Ooh.
in 2 days, and it was a rough time. There's a lot of energy drinks, there's a lot of, walkie-talking back and forth, but yeah, it was a wild ride.
I have a lot of friends that know this story, but my wife has family down in Phoenix, and so every year we'd go down and see her family. Normally around January, in the January timeframe, because it's miserable in Wisconsin and it's really really nice down there. And
Yep.
so we have a golden retriever that's got separation anxiety from my wife, and he does stupid stuff. So he'll eat stuff that he's not supposed to, and then we have to get surgery on the dog, and it's very expensive. So one year I was like, you know what? You and my son Bo, you can fly down and then I'll drive with the dog down. And I did this for like 5 years. And
Wow.
it was always like Des Moines, Iowa, and Albuquerque, New Mexico that were absolutely miserable for weather. And I got at one point, I got stuck on I-40 outside of Albuquerque for like 3.5 hours. Traffic stopped, like completely stopped. It looked like the apocalypse. There were semis crashed everywhere. And it was sketchy driving. There was ice packed down on the road, and it was crazy. But yeah, similar to you, I don't know that I quite expected that. But anytime you throw mountains in the mix,
Yeah.
you can get some interesting things.
Yeah, I was just oblivious to it, which now I know, and it turns out down here in Texas, since it's so flat, a lot of people go to New Mexico for skiing. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. It's good to
That
know.
makes sense. Yeah.
Um,
it,
but
it's
yeah,
coming together.
yeah, but the whole move was, it was for the good. It was a rough couple of months. I moved down here without my wife for a whole month after we had our newborn son. He was 6 months old, so that was a big strain, especially being that since me and my wife had been together, that was the first time that I had been alone for that extended period of time. Since back when I was first making the podcast. So that was hard in itself. New environment, new friends, new job. There's a lot to speak to getting comfortable as a flat rate technician. A lot of processes that I thought were, probably standard everywhere are different from place to place. So I didn't realize making the move down here how much my productivity would be affected by things. When you're in a new shop environment, unless it is a carbon copy, the way things flow, the way things that you're operating, there's a big learning curve to get back to where I felt like I finally have my flow again. Um, and yeah, I would say probably now at the 10-month mark of being here is I'm finally starting to get my feet again under me. But those first couple of months, you walk in, you're working on the same thing that you did before. I've worked on Subarus before. I've worked on them my whole career, but the change in the product, because down here it's a lot newer, a lot more money is involved, so people have newer cars. So I'm working on newer stuff more frequently. The heat changed how vehicles react down here. Different repairs due to heat. And also, I have a little bit of an edge around some of the people here because I've also worked on a lot older cars for a lot more of my career. Because in Oregon, it was like you keep it until it kind of goes in the ground, just because probably money, I would guess, and just the population is probably another side of it. Because I went from a market of maybe 50,000 to 2 million. Who knows? I mean, it keeps going every day.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah. Feels like it's going up by like 100,000 every day. It's crazy. Austin is growing at such a crazy rate.
Yeah, it's been a major adjustment for me coming from a small town going to the city. I mean, there's just so much new. All I can relate it to is uh, I think I talked about it in the first podcast, but when I made the move up to Corvallis when I first started college, I felt very similar. And luckily this time I had experience going through new city, new job, new people. So I knew I could do it, but I definitely I felt that same just uh, unknown that I did, and I had to relearn so much. And honestly, after doing this move again, or doing that type of move, the next time I do it, I'm sure I'll be even better and more confident, and hopefully prepare for snow in New Mexico.
Well, and I don't even think it's just work stuff, right? Like
Yeah,
finding the grocery store that you're going to go to and like getting your routine stuff that it'll still like where to go vote at, like where to go, like all of the little stuff that you don't think about until you're actually in a new place. It
yeah,
does take some time to find your footing. And, it probably was at some level maybe nice to be down there before your wife so that you could kind of
yes,
scope out everything and get some
yeah,
level of comfort and make her
yep,
feel at ease a little bit when she's moving with a
yeah,
baby. There's a lot of
yes.
stressors there.
Yeah, no, I mean, without her, I wouldn't have been able to do it. She packed our whole house into I mean, obviously she didn't move the stuff, but she facilitated all of the moving side of things. So she allowed me to really focus on the work side of things, obviously. Um, but she handled the scheduling for the getting our stuff down here. She handled hiring the movers and everything like that to facilitate it. So she really took a lot of that stress off of me. If I was going to do it by myself, I mean, I don't know. It would have been a lot worse. And so, she was a big part of it too. 100% could not have made it down here without her help.
If I had to do it by myself, I think I'd just be like, I'm starting over. I'm going to buy everything.
Yeah, everything's new. Just leave it all behind. The unfortunate thing is, like, with the tools, you can't, right? Because it's like
No.
that, and so that was hard to get a trailer. Also, I went from a built-in toolbox at my last place to a non-built-in, so there was a sizable investment. You know, just because I was a big collector of tools. I always had whatever I needed and probably way too much more. And so I definitely had to pay out when it came to getting the box. But man, I love working out of my own box. And
What'd you get for a box?
of course, Snap on. You know, I got red because that was my favorite color.
I do
And
like Snap-on
still is.
Red.
Yeah, and it's like a candy apple, but it's a Masters series, triple bank, and I have a locker and a hutch with it now. And I prefer it so much more. I never thought that I would not want built-ins, but after working out of my own box, built-ins are great for when you're growing, but I really think in modern dealerships, they should have spots for growing technicians and spots where technicians can bring their own, because it allows me to store so much more efficiently. And like I said, a little bit of, I'm going to work here. I'm spending a large amount of my life here. I like to have a little bit of myself in it.
It's a weird balance there, right? Because that's one of the things that, like, whether it's surveying or just general conversation with text through our WrenchWay stuff, that you'll hear from young techs that maybe it's a barrier to entry to get
Yep.
in is the expensive tools. Even with some of the more experienced techs now, you'll hear about, well, I got to buy my own tools. This is not
Yep.
like some of the other trades. And then you'll hear from other techs that are like, don't touch my tools. I want to buy my tools. I want, and
Yeah.
it's hard to balance, because I think a lot of techs do want their own tools, but maybe don't want to spend the money on them. And
Yeah.
it's uh it's a weird dynamic, because I don't know that there's like one simple answer for that. And,
Yep.
I think similar to what we've talked about in the past, you don't want a young technician to go into a bunch of debt and
No.
then kind of get in trouble with the tool truck for owing a bunch of money and not being able to pay off that debt, or just end up in that perpetual wheel where you're just always in debt to the tool truck. Because
Yep.
I do think that's what causes techs to, like, not even necessarily want to leave their current shop, but like having to leave their current shop because they need
Yep.
that, the bonus money, or they need a raise to pay their tool debt. And in a lot of cases, they don't necessarily need what they're buying. They're doing it because, the stuff looks cool and it's awesome. And they see Josh Arnold with that brand new shiny Snap-on box, and they're jealous of that, right? But
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
you gotta know where you're at in your career.
Yeah, and that's what I always tell my apprentices and anyone that kind of like comments on the tools. They're like, it's a very nice setup. And I was like, yeah, it's been 8 years of consistent investment. And I also tell them too, like, I don't need some of this stuff. I'm just the person where if I use it 3 times, I'm buying it. As a dealership technician, that's not probably a too good of a rule, because a lot of supplement tools come from the dealership, right? But I just prefer to have my own stuff in where I know it's going to be taken care of and where I can get to it efficiently. So there's an argument to say that you do need it, but also if I'm busting out a compression gauge once a year, does it really provide value to have my own rather than just going and trying to find the shops that once a year? So it's definitely a balance for me. I'm definitely a tool guy on top of a technician. I really like having the right tool for the right job, so that's why I'll always continue to buy tools throughout my career.
How much do technicians really make? At WrenchWay, we work with some of the best shops and dealerships across the country, and we've discovered that technicians often earn more than what some online sources suggest. For example, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that technicians make an average of $47,000 per year, but we know that's not reflective of the true earning potential of technicians. We've teamed up with ASE to create an online technician pay tool, a free, easy to use resource for both aspiring technicians and those already in the automotive and diesel industries. This tool lets you explore real pay data with customizable searches by industry, shop type, location, and experience level. Check it out at wrenchway.com/pay or follow the link in the show notes. We also encourage current technicians to anonymously submit their own pay data to help make the tool even better for everyone. Lastly, thank you for your continued support as we work to promote and improve careers in automotive and diesel. We couldn't do it without you. Are you an organizational freak? Like, do you like to keep everything
Yeah.
organized and
Yes.
in order? Yeah.
I'm probably one of the cleanest technicians that you'll ever see in a shop, and it's a problem because once I develop a process to keep something clean, I can never go back. So I'm always adding more and more to how I do things, and it obviously requires more time on my part, and it does make me better, but also I definitely have a problem. I don't like making messes and spills, and since I'm far enough in my career that I can usually do that, if by spending a little bit extra time, I'm always gonna kind of go that way. But yes,
I love
definitely.
that. By the way, love that. I I geek out. I said this is weird. The older I get, the more I'm fascinated with just like general tool organization. And I when I was in corporate America, we went through all of the Lean Six Sigma
Yeah,
or like lean principles like with the Toyota way, right?
yeah,
And it's still to this day something that I think they brand your brain with and you can't get around like that
100%.
piece. And so I found myself watching videos on like the foam, right? And how people are doing their boxes with the foam and making sure
Yeah,
that everything's cut out and like perfectly organized. And I've bought foam. I haven't actually done my own personal toolbox with it yet, but I'm working on it. I'm going through and making sure everything has a home and being able to easily identify when something's missing and just in general just I think maybe calms your brain a little bit. Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm not quite there, because I feel like the guys with foam, they have to know exactly what they're gonna need for each job, and at the dealer, unfortunately, as much as I try, I still use variety because I'm always trying to find the next better way to try something. So I don't have foam in my toolboxes, but I'm organized in a way that I have openness, but also it's not quite the foam level. That'd be great, but it's not practical.
I I tell you what, I think if you tried it, it's not necessarily I get what you're saying with the warranty jobs and like if you have a big recall job and you set up
Yeah.
your foams for that. You ever read the book The Toyota Way?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that I actually just finished it a second time here, and
It
it,
it's great, right?
yeah, it every time I read that book, it makes me it makes me want to try to implement their processes into dealerships. Yes,
Got it right
that's the
here.
one. That's the one. And I read it first 3 years ago, and it really got me down the path of kind of what we're talking about now: being organized, being efficient. With every step you make, it should be an efficient step, and try to overlap as much things as possible. um, the second read around, I really liked the process orientation, and also I like that Toyota doesn't structure, especially in that book they talk about it. You can't go and say this is the one way to do things. You have to learn per your organization what's going to work best for you, because if they tell you how to do it, then that's the incorrect way, and that's not the Toyota way.
Yeah. And it's I think one of the pieces I love about it is similar to your mindset. It's always trying to improve. It's always trying to
Yep.
get a little bit better. And I think, I've had conversations with employees of mine. I've had these conversations with other people where we'll talk a little bit about, the need to constantly get better. And they'll say, "Well, am I not doing a good job right now?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, that's not the point. It's
That's
not
not
the
the
point.
point.
It's
Yeah.
it's that the mindset is looking for inefficiencies. It's looking for ways to get
Yep.
better." And that was one of the things you and I just had a conversation about, is what's really driven your success has been, maybe a change in your habits, a change in what you're doing to make yourself better. You had mentioned
Yeah.
you're getting up at 4 a.m. every day.
Yeah, I actually started that, years ago, but I've really started to utilize it more. When I made the move, it's a fresh start, right? All your old habits, all your old things, you're changing everything. So changing a couple of habits while you have that big of a change in your life is easier than ever because you're just starting with a blank slate. So I've always gotten up at 4, and what I used to do was usually kind of play around with news or just kind of waste time, honestly. And now being a dad and being a husband and also working and trying to progress myself, that is my time to make myself better, at least a little bit. So I've been trying to go to the gym before work. I usually do a little bit of reading, a little bit of note taking. It's basically, like you hear all those celebrity ridiculous get up at 4 a.m. and conquer the world type of thing. There's a little bit of truth to that. I think structuring it, I kind of looked at it like the Toyota way. If I do it a good majority of the time and I try to improve it as I go, and if I miss a couple of times here and there, that's just life, right? Some days it's okay. It
Yeah,
doesn't work out.
the baby's gonna wake
But
up, and you're gonna have to help out. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and so you take it in the way that you're trying to build something long term and modify as you go, and that's really helped me. Um, One of the processes that I'm most proud of that I've come up with recently is I'm working on a lot more engines here at Subaru. Like Toyota and Subaru together, I'd usually work on 50-50. Working for exclusively Subaru, I'm doing a ton of engine work, which means a ton of sealant scraping all day long. And I used to just listen to music, kind of chat with the guy around me while I was doing that, but I've done audiobooks now. So every time that I'm doing an engine job, I can usually get through 5 to 6 hours of an audiobook just because I'm scraping fish, which is form and place gasket for anyone that doesn't know. Um, so I feel like that is utilizing the time better because not only am I getting paid, but I'm learning at the same time. So I'm looking to do that throughout my life is finding ways that I can get two things for one, and really utilize the little bit of time that I have every day to try to maximize it.
yeah, and I think one of the things you said there was kind of interesting to me, because it can be easy to fall in the trap of, you see these influencers on social media that are like a Mark Wahlberg, right? Who is, I think last I saw, was getting up at like 2:30 a.m. or something. And I'm like,
He's
all
gonna
right,
go into the
like
next
that.
day here pretty soon.
Yeah. Wake up at midnight. Uh, and you look at that, and I do think it can put undue pressure on you to have that one routine every single day. And I don't care who you are, like, you're not going to have it every single day. There's going to be things that come up, and maybe he can do it because he's got house staff that takes care of the baby, or like something
Yeah,
that can take
you
care
never
of that.
know.
But yeah, but like, you look even at some of the industry influencers, or like our industry, and they'll show, I mean, it's often talked about, like, the glamorous stuff comes across social media, and it's not that
Yep.
way. I don't care who you are. Like, it's not that way every day. And maybe there's some freaks that do the same thing every single day. But like, I do think knowing that you're striving to do the right things every day, and you're working at your habits, and you're able
Yep.
to, kind of, I've so many people have read the book Atomic Habits now, and it's such a
Yep.
good book. and the habit stacking is real, and the things that if you're doing the right things, that you're going to get better. But if you miss a day or something happens, like, it happens. Like, don't beat yourself
Yep.
up too much, right?
Yeah. No, you just gotta not let it become a habit. So if you miss it, don't miss it twice, I think is a good saying. Always try to check yourself because you will slip. And even if you slip and you fall off the wagon, you get back on as soon as you can, and find a
Right.
way to will yourself to do something. I read that book, or listened to it, I should probably say. Um, and yeah, I learned a lot from that. I like how the one that kind of stuck out to me was the toothpaste. How it used to get people to brush their teeth, it had to have a minty aftertaste because there was something good after doing something they didn't want to do, which is brush their teeth. And so I've tried to find things to end my habits on. So like the gym, I'll go take a nice hot shower after. To me, that's rewarding. Just different things to reward yourself for um, doing that habit, and just make sure that that is not a bad habit that you reward yourself with. Try to make it a positive one.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I think one thing that's unique, and I don't think it's as glorified with technicians as, like, yeah, you might see somebody at that executive level that will advertise that they're doing this stuff, but I've known techs that have done this for years, right? Like, that have
Yep.
been getting up super early, and I in running shops have seen those people that show up super early, and they're prepared and they're ready to go, and they don't look like they are disheveled and just, like, kind of shove themselves out of bed to get into work, right? Like, they've actually
Yeah.
done some things already that morning, and they typically are the better technicians, right? Like, the ones that are a little bit more prepared,
Yeah.
and the ones that are, you know, not not staying up late the night before and coming in, and not, I don't know, like, there's just something there of, like, having an organized mindset when you start your day, and knowing that you've already
Yep.
accomplished some things to kind of get the ball of momentum rolling. And I think then, they always talk about working out. If you do it first thing in the morning, like, everything else is going to be great because you did the worst thing already already in the morning, right? And, like, the rest
Yep.
of the day is going to get easier.
Yep.
So I do think there are things that are effective. The other thing I'll say is that I think it's different for every person too, right? Like, there's like, different lifestyles, different habits, and you just have to come up with a system that kind of works for you. Otherwise, if you're trying to kind of fit into somebody else's system, and everybody's family
Yep.
dynamics are different, everybody's personal situations are different, like, just trying to find, like, what works best for you to get the best results out of it.
Yeah, you gotta cater to yourself, you gotta know yourself. Was going to the gym at 2 in the afternoon, and I did it because I wanted to work with the personal trainers that they provide here, which was fantastic, but long term, it really started to wear on me because I'm just not an afternoon person. I like to get all my stuff done in the morning that I don't wanna do because by the afternoon, I'm pretty much done. I would never be a person that wants to go work out after work. Like, that just sounds terrible to me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't have to be someone that gets up early. Maybe you're a person that is a night owl or stays up later, but make sure that you're maximizing your time and using your schedule to cater to yourself to be more efficient in your own way. Um, I think is the best part of it.
Did
But
you develop
yeah.
a deep hatred for those personal trainers?
No, I loved it. I mean, it was investment in time, but the honest truth is when you're in flat rate, every bit of time that you're away or downtime walking away from the bay, it costs you money. And so I learned a lot from them. They really helped me, with diet. They helped me get some exercises going and helped me build some confidence in the gym that where they work. Um, but long term, it just was costing me too much versus the gain that I could do by myself. Is kind of the way I looked at it because with flat rate, it's time. and everything is a financial. So if I'm gonna do something in the middle of the day, it's gonna cost me money. Whereas like something like this, where I'm doing it first thing in the morning, once I get going, then I can kind of continue it. So I try to schedule myself throughout the day like that, with anything.
What did you change in your diet?
Just trying to eat a little bit cleaner. I used to go out to eat with a lot of the guys at Corvallis. That was a big thing. Like that was our kind of our way to hang out and different things. And like I said, when you move, it's a fresh start. Like I didn't know anybody. I didn't go to lunch, so I was able to reduce a habit of going out to lunch. Sometimes multiple times a week in Corvallis. And I had broken that habit before, but it never really stuck because, you want to go hang out with your friends. You want to have the lunch, specials or whatever there is out there. And I still go to lunch out here, but it's a lot more since I've been able to start fresh. I've tried to make a better habit of it, making it once a month, twice a month.
So when you're not going out to eat, what do you eat?
My wife has been very grateful to pack me some lunches, so she helps me out. She'll make me. I'm pretty simple, just a salad with Italian dressing and turkey meat, and that's good enough for me. We also have snacks at this dealership that they provide. So I mean,
And
if I'm a little bit
you're
hungry,
not just pounding Snickers then, are you?
no, they're healthy snacks. The whole
They are.
the
All
whole
right.
point of this place is to get healthier, and they take that very seriously, so they try to help you out as much as possible.
Things sure have changed since the old days of wrenching on vehicles in the driveway. Modern day vehicles, hybrids, and EVs contain more than 10 million lines of code and require a keen understanding of technology to diagnose and repair. ASE certified technicians are in high demand, and the earnings of an ASE certified tech can be as much as 20% more than a non-certified technician. The launchpad to a high-tech career begins at ase.com/careers.
I love this because you've probably heard me say this before, but I view techs very much like I view athletes, right? Like if you're a football player or something like that, you have to take care of your body because we've seen older techs that where they get to the end of their career and they're kind of
Yep,
crippled and frail a little bit, right? And it's a lot of times because they didn't take care of their bodies or they didn't do the smart things. And there's some people where it's hard. Like for me, I had knee surgery when I was like 20, something like that. And the doc was like, listen, you got to get off the cement. Like your knee is going to like fall apart if you keep like staying on the
yep.
cement. And so that on top of being a bad tech was the reason why I wasn't in the shop anymore because my knee was falling apart. But I've talked to a lot of techs and I said, your goal should be to take care of your body enough to where you can work in the shop as long as you want to, right? And it's not a forced
Yep,
decision where you're having to be forced out of the shop, that you are still in really good shape. And if you approach it a little differently and maybe you have a different mindset. We had Andrew Batenhorst from out, he works at a collision dealership, BMW dealership out in California, and he's actually got he manages the shop, and he's got some of his techs doing yoga now. Who would have ever thought that you'd have
yeah,
techs doing yoga? But like yoga is essentially stretching and making sure that
yep,
you're taking care of your body. And so I think the longer we go with shop culture, the more people will take that seriously because it is, it can be a grind on your body. And so if that's your tool to make your livelihood, better take care of it and better take it seriously. I don't think
yep.
the days of just pounding a 12 pack of soda a day and hoping, just trying to get through the day. I don't know that that's the most
Yeah.
effective way.
No, it definitely isn't a long-term solution to the problem, and I just feel like, a lot of people supplement, emotion for food nowadays, and that was something I definitely did because
I
stress
do
stress eating
totally.
Uh, like, yeah, and it's just so available too. And it all goes back to that, just that habit is like what makes you feel good. And when you have that feeling, you want to continue to chase that feeling. Sometimes you don't even realize what you're doing or why you're doing it. You're just chasing it. For sure. So the reading has really helped me in more ways than one. Again, that's a pro to this dealership because they provide all books that I want. They will pay for anything for continued learning. And like I said, having that with tying with the engine work has allowed me to really learn a lot in my short time here.
That's awesome. I think, you know, we'll talk to shops like all day, every day about ways that you can differentiate yourself and put yourself in a different light. That's one that I don't know that I've heard of before, where they're buying their textbooks to help with self improvement. And I think it's especially with shop culture now. I don't know that 20 years ago you might have been laughed out of the shop if you had said that, but now
Yeah, for sure. For
it's
sure.
changed, right? Like I think there are a different breed of technician that does want to get better and does want to improve, not only, you know, physically, but, you know, if you're trying to be a better family man, you're trying to be, you know, more well-rounded. Maybe you do have aspirations to move up the chain within the dealership, or you want to be in a manager type role at some point, or you want to do something that's
Yep.
outside of wrenching. Like to prepare yourself, you do need to learn some different skills, and you do need to look at things a little differently. And I think it would benefit a lot of technicians to read and listen to a podcast, because it might give you different insight into what a manager is going through, right? I think
Yep.
so many times that technician manager relationship can be strained
Yep.
because the others, like, they don't understand each other, right? And so maybe it does give you some perspective in terms of what that manager is going through, and that maybe they're not trying to screw you over with dispatch, they're just trying to manage their day and get get through their day, you know?
Yeah, I definitely have. I think reading provides you different ideas, different perspectives. I mean, you've heard it all before, what books will do for you. But for me, if I get one idea off of a book, I consider it a win because I've learned something that I wouldn't have necessarily had before, aka learning, like revolutionary concept there, of course. But it's just it's made me so much better, and it just goes back into Toyota continuous improvement. It's just another layer that I can do to try to make myself better, and it does pay off for the business too. I mean, in reading a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, I
Great
had
book.
an idea. It was the first book. It was the first book that was given to me when I got here. My manager at the time handed it to me, and he had known me not too long, but he had a pretty good idea of what I was about. He passed me that book and he said, "Read it." And I did an audiobook just because that works so much better for me. I'm not somebody that I guess absorbs it as well through the pages rather than hearing it. But I read that book, I related to that guy's story because all it was about was basically how in the industry of restaurant at his time, doing things above the level or pushing the boundaries was unacceptable. And so came his many ideas of how to be unreasonable and how he grew his restaurant to be extremely successful by doing things a different way. And the idea that was given to me out of that was the industry's been doing video MPIs pretty much standard now. I think most big dealerships, even independent shops, are going that way. It's all going that direction. And so when I read that book, I was like, in an unreasonable thing would be to film a post secondary MPI video. And then the dealership side, hopefully providing the customer with here's what was wrong with your vehicle when you came in, but also here's what we did to fix it and here's what it looks like now. Because I feel like as a car dealership, you bring your car in, it goes into this box. There's a $5,000 bill that's sent to you through a video inspection. Luckily nowadays, you get to see why. But once it's done, that car comes out. Maybe it's got a fresh wash on it. Maybe you did some exterior components, but most of the time, especially the high dollar value stuff, it's under the hood, it's under the car, it's safety related, so you don't necessarily get to see what was done. So in this idea, it is to show everything from the start to finish. What are you paying for? What are you doing? And so far, in the 6 months I've been doing it, it's been very successful in creating a stronger relationship with customers. And for the people that do view it, I think they get a lot out of it.
Yeah, and I think it brings you some level of personal brand too, right? They know the person that's working on their vehicle, like they
Yep.
similar to a podcast, right? Where there's been many times where I go to a trade show and somebody will walk up to me and say, I know you, like we've met before, and I'm like, no, we haven't, but it's because they'll watch or listen to the podcast, right? And
Yeah.
uh, and it is cool because it does allow people to learn your personality a little bit and learn, that I think the trust factor, if you look at it from an MPI standpoint, is huge because what have customers been conditioned to think? Well, that this person, they're trying to screw me over. They're trying to like sell me stuff I don't need. And if you
Yeah.
actually like, I think MPIs can do such a good job at growing trust if you approach them the right way. If it's just you throwing the book at them, and I think there
Yeah.
are times where dealerships or shops in general will still do the wallet flushes, right? Like where they're
Yeah.
flushing every fluid on the vehicle, and you're like, I don't love that.
Yep.
Like I don't love that approach.
Yeah. I think that the the multi-point inspection is great, but it's a selling tool. Whereas I feel like
Yeah,
the second video, that's not I'm not selling you anything. I mean, I might be selling you what I did, but I'm it's purely for the customer at that point, and the MPI tool, it's pitched as when it's sold to a dealership, right? When the package is sold to a dealer, this will make you more money, but also it's
right.
it's more than that. It's the service to the customer that it provides, and the money comes along with it, which is great, but it should always be service focused. And the post video, I don't get paid for it. It does take more time away from it, but what it does is creates a relationship, builds that brand, and I'm very proud to always show off my work because I take a lot of pride in it. If I have something sloppy after I'm done with it, that's not something I would want to show on video. So I think it will create a better technician, especially if it becomes standard, because your pre and post, you should always want to show your customer your work. And if you don't, then there's probably something wrong with it.
What do you use for that post video? Like, are you just using the MPI like that, or are
Yeah.
you using a different video tool?
So we use CDK for our multi-point, and then we have My Karma, which is exclusively for our videos. And which the nice thing about My Karma is that it allows you to just record videos and send to customers. Whereas I know working on X Time, I don't know if I would have been able to facilitate this because I think you had to tie an MPI or something tied to it. Um, and also I'm not sure if it had the process to send something twice. But My Karma, the setup that we have here, I've been able to send multiple videos and not have a problem with that.
That's cool. Do you have
Yeah,
you found that you've gotten better at doing videos
I think that I mean I've done a lot better just in my 3 years of doing video MPIs. I actually won the
in
contest
general?
for the My Karma Grand Prix this year, so I got recognized for that. But also the post MPI video is a whole different approach now because it's very much a reintroduction back to the customer. It's a thank you to them, and also I found some friction with advisors because um, surprisingly, when I had sent some of these videos, well, they had told the customer it wasn't going to be done till tomorrow, and I got to it early. So it's actually created a little bit of something I didn't expect, which is where advisors are obviously doing their job, making sure that the customer expectation is kept. But if I get to something a little bit early, I have to be cautious because once I send this video, that vehicle is done. That's what I'm showing them. Their vehicle is complete. And I'll usually use something like, oh, I have to go test drive your vehicle a little bit more. We're going to have to wrap up paperwork, different things like that. But I definitely didn't think about it when I was originally doing it, how much that might change the advisor side of things, because it is now putting a time crunch on their end, especially if a customer sees that video and says, well, I want my vehicle back yesterday, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's brought some interesting dynamics along with it.
I think even when you read the book Unreasonable Hospitality, though, he talks about how you have to adapt and change a little bit too. Like when you introduce a new process or you're doing, like, there's always going to be the other shoe that falls, and you need to
Yep.
have the ability to fix things. I think what I appreciate about what you're doing is that you are putting stressors on the system or maybe a process, because you're trying things outside the box and things that should ultimately help with customer satisfaction and your CSI scores, whatever it might be.
Yep.
But the hope, and I think this is where leadership can really help in a regard like this, in a situation like this, is to look at that and say, hey, I've got one person that is really, really trying to push the limits in a good way. And that's putting different stressors on our other process. So let's get together, have a conversation and say, hey, this part is really good. Let's talk about how we smoothen this out with the customer and making sure that we're not putting our advisors in a bad position. And it's it drives conversation that ultimately will make your shop better. It's just a matter of having to go through that process and be comfortable with pushing the limits, right?
Yeah, and it's hard to step out there. I went to a service quality specialist class up at the Portland region, and I will never forget this one video. And it's a guy dancing in the park. It's a TED Talk, and they showed this video, and the guy's just waving his arms, doing ridiculous things out in the middle of the park. And this video points out that you have to be brave with an idea. You have to be willing to stand out and wiggle your arms and just look stupid to most people. But the TED Talk then goes, the second person is also considered a leader because they're actually jumping on board with you at that point. And now it's not ridiculous, because if two people are doing it, then it's a thing, right? And then the back half of this video shows all of the people in the park suddenly just acting ridiculous. And so ever since seeing that video, I've had the confidence, probably too much sometimes, to go out and just be ridiculous. And I'm either going to be the person that's standing out there by myself, or I'm going to be the person that follows up. But I do try to support things that necessarily don't make sense in the time. And I'll be forever grateful for that class, that video. It's never going away. That will be a part of my life, for the rest of it. So big shout out to all of the Toyota region guys.
Think I was up there for that one. I think I was in that meeting that you're talking about, because I think that was one that I was presenting at. I remember that video, and as you're talking
Yeah.
about it, it didn't click at first, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I
Yeah.
that is funny. I definitely remember that.
Yeah, I think that's where we originally had met, but
Yeah,
those classes to me just life changing, and they were probably, I mean, not thought to be that. And I tell a bear all the time, and the other Jake. There's so many J's in the Toyota area, but
there are. Yeah, they're all great.
what that yeah yeah what that class did is exactly what they have on their wall, the Portland region, which is the Toyota advocate for life. I will forever be grateful, no matter what company I work for. I will forever be grateful for everything that I learned along the way with them, and I will never stop singing their praises and what they did for me. 100%.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're great people, especially that region holds a special place in my heart too. Brian Abear is a great guy, avid
Yeah.
listener to Beyond the Wrench too. So like he might actually hear this. So we can't pump him up too much here. We got to settle that down a little bit now. Brian's the best.
Yeah.
He's been huge for us too.
Yeah, it overall just the the things that I've learned the most in my life is just get better. You're gonna make mistakes, learn from them. and keep pushing the boundaries. And I hope that for the rest of my career, however long it might be, I will continue to be the guy dancing in the park.
I think that's a great. I think it's a great thing. I think you're unique in that regard. Do you think, and I'll end with this, do you think that you'll be able to get younger people to follow your lead as you kind of move into that role and get more time in a shop to get others to follow you in that regard? I think so much of shop culture comes down to the people in the shop. And if you have people like you that are wanting to strive to get better,
Yeah,
I assume that that's going to get others to follow your lead.
I hope so. I think the best part of leadership is leading by example. And I tell all of my apprentices, my first thing that I say to them is, and I've said this before, is I expect you to be better than me, because if I'm going to invest in you, then it's got to have a higher return. That's just simple investment. But I'm not going to make it easy. And for as long as I'm in this industry, I will continue to push what I am capable of, because I want the people behind me to see that it's possible. Whatever you think is a limit, you can go higher. And I've had so many limits in my career that I thought that's it. And I'm going to continue to try to find ways. And I hope that inspires people below me to do the same, so that we can make this industry something special over the course of my career. And I hope to see the change in the industry, if not have a little bit of a part in helping it.
Well, you're having a big part in it, and it's always fun to talk to you. I'm glad we got to do another podcast. I'm sure it won't be the last. We did have a young lady on that we recorded with yesterday that might be one of those that pushes you. She's very accomplished. She's a Subaru tech. And she, I'll have to introduce the two of you at some point, because she was so impressive. I think you'd really get along with her and what she's doing. She's doing some amazing things out there too. So it is fun to kind of show off what our industry has to offer in terms of just incredibly talented people, one of which is you. And it's always a pleasure talking to you. Always learn something. And man, I just hope you keep rolling with this thing, because you're doing some amazing things.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.